Very good. And welcome this afternoon, folks, to our session on an introduction to Zoom. I'm Dave Giberson. I'm an old retired instructional design coordinator from Online Learning Pathways at the district. And I've come back to help them out a little bit with some online training. And of course, the training all depends upon Zoom. Without it, we wouldn't be able to provide this kind of instructor delivered live real-time training that really is still one of the best ways to learn. I mean, asynchronous online learning is great. Things like Canvas are great, but there's really no substitute for being able to see your students and them to see you and be able to talk back and forth quite naturally in real time, the kind of capability that Zoom gives us. And while we'd certainly much prefer to be sitting in a classroom with our students in most cases, Zoom provides a marvelous alternative to that, which gives you a great deal of, replaces a great deal of what we've lost by not being able to sit in the classroom with our students. And Zoom has tremendous capabilities, so there's really not much of a compromise in terms of what you can do in terms of imparting knowledge to your students. And indeed, Zoom is a much easier paradigm shift, to use a jargon term, for us in moving online from on campus, because we can basically continue lecturing as we did before, while supplementing that with asynchronous, anytime resources and capabilities provided by things like Canvas, our learning management system. So Zoom and Canvas together provide the two ends of the spectrum in terms of distance education at this point in time. Zoom allows us to interact with our students in real time in much the same way we would in a classroom, where Canvas allows us to provide information and assessment to our students on their own schedule within limits, so that you don't all have to be online, for instance, for the students to take a test or turn in a homework assignment. But we're going to be dealing with the synchronous part of distance education today, and which is epitomized by Zoom. Zoom is scarcely the only video conferencing tool of this type, but it is arguably the simplest to use. It's as powerful or more powerful than anything else on the market, and it's exceptionally reliable. This paradigm is not a new one. I was doing distance education by live video conference back in the 1980s, but it required a room full of equipment that cost a couple $100,000 at each end. And it was technically very complex. The reliability was minimal, and the amount of effort involved was considerable. Tools like Zoom have revolutionized that for us. I mean, it's wonderful that the State Chancellor's Office is providing us with Zoom for free, but if you were paying for these Zoom Pro accounts that the Chancellor's Office is providing, it would cost you $15 a month, about what you may pay for HBO. So it's not something that's totally out of reach, even for folks who are not subsidized by their educational organizations. It is true that power per money, per cost in Zoom is just incredible. And yet they seem to be making money. So not quite sure how. A couple of basics about Zoom, since I'm assuming here that at least some of you are brand new to the system, since this is designed as an initial introduction. This session is designed as an initial introduction to Zoom. I'm going to try not to make any assumptions about any prior experience you have in Zoom, though it's very difficult to avoid Zoom meetings these days, as we all know. But just a couple of things. I do have most of you muted at this point in time. That's mainly to cut down background noise. We have a fair number of folks here, 22 attendees today, including me. That's great. But I do have your microphones muted, but I've left you the right to unmute them. You can do that if you're on a computer and you mouse over where you're seeing me, move your mouse cursor over that, a menu should pop up at the bottom of the Zoom window. And in the far lower left corner of that menu is a little mute button. Looks like a little microphone. And it probably has a red slash through it right now, indicating that you are muted. All you have to do to unmute yourself is to click on that button with your mouse, and you will be able to speak. And I'll certainly ask you to do that when I start answering questions, general questions at the end. Let's see, there's also a little camera icon right next to that, which allows you to turn your webcam video on and off, if you have a webcam. It's certainly not essential for you to have a webcam if you're attending a Zoom meeting. If you're hosting one, it's really, really desirable. Not absolutely essential, but really desirable to have a webcam. And of course, a microphone as well, otherwise your attendees wouldn't be able to hear you. But you can turn your video on and off, and that little camera icon allows you to do that. You just click on that icon and your video will turn off and then turn back on. The other thing we'll be using extensively in this session is the chat tool. It's a simple text chat tool, not too different from sending text messages on your phone, except we just send it back and forth in the meeting here. I think I have things set so I can show you the chat tool here. Zoom allows you, there's a setting in your Zoom meeting settings that allows you to share Zoom's windows with your attendees if you're trying to teach Zoom. That's a relatively recent development, and it's become very handy in teaching this. Another thing, of course, that you can do with Zoom is you can share your screen. If you do that, whatever you see on your computer monitor, your attendees also see. It's functionally equivalent to having a laptop and a projector in your classroom and throwing the image of your laptop screen up on the screen on the wall. Except it will throw that image anywhere in the world. And we've got someone sharing their screen, and I can undo that as the host. That's an important security setting that we'll talk about a little later. So I am now sharing my Zoom screen, and if I bring my chat window over, you should be able to see that. And there's our chat so far. It's been fairly active. At the bottom of this chat window is a little box that has in it the text "type message here." Yes. If you click on that box and type something in it, and then press the enter or return key on your keyboard, then everyone will see what you typed. Well, except I sent that to Pauline accidentally. Let me try that again. You can send private messages, though that's a setting that you can alter. There, I sent that to everyone that time. And you can choose to whom you send, normally to everyone. So this provides sort of a back channel. It's tantamount to passing notes in class, but with an instructionally valid purpose in this case. You can, and I will put some information in this chat tool from time to time. And you can save the chat log, at least those messages that are directed to everyone and to you personally, you can save by going to this little More menu in the lower right-hand corner of the chat window. It's hard to see, but it's 3 dots in a row and an ellipsis. If you click on that with your mouse cursor, you can then save the chat. And that saves to a folder on your hard drive.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Steve, do you want everyone to put their name and emails in?
I'm working up to that. You betcha. Thank you. And let's see, what did I do with I accidentally minimized that. There we go. It goes to your default documents folder, PC or Mac, into a folder called Zoom, and then into a subfolder which is dated and timed with today's date. There, the one at the bottom here, 2020, 6/15, and this meeting started just before 1 o'clock. So if we open that folder, there's a file called meetingsavedchat.txt, and that contains your chat log. And you can save that at any time. And obviously it gets longer and longer as you go through the meeting, so you can save it multiple times. It will just save over the file. And it's a good idea, of course, to remember to save it just before you leave the meeting if you can. I save the chat log in all of my meetings, so if you miss it, if you don't get it, let me know and I can provide you with a copy of it.
Dave, are you the only one who can save? Is the host the only one that can save it?
No, anyone can save the chat log.
Right.
Should we tell our students to save the chat log too?
Well, you may or not as you deem fit. Certainly you can. And they can save it. And they may know how to do it whether you tell them or not. You can turn that capability off. And so, and you can also prevent them from sending messages individually to individuals rather than to the group.
Can you show that quickly?
I will. I'm going to wait till I get to the meetings settings, if I may. All right, and another thing you can use the chat log for is an attendance tool, which I would request that you do so. I see a number of you, having been through these things before, I see a number of you have already done so, but if you wouldn't mind putting your name and, if you don't mind, your email address in the chat tool, that will give me a roster and also make it easier for me to get back in touch with some of you. And I don't know why Outlook is popping up windows on my Zoom screen. Sorry about that. Get that out of the way. I just installed a new version of Outlook, and obviously I don't entirely understand it yet. But anyway, that will give me a way to get back in touch with you if we have unfinished business today, like questions I can't answer, which is by no means impossible. All righty. You all have or can get free Zoom accounts, and not just free basic Zoom accounts, but Zoom Pro accounts, the full-blown individual Zoom accounts from the State Chancellor's Office. The state has worked, the California community colleges worked a deal with Zoom where they pay them to provide pro or professional Zoom accounts to all faculty and staff at all community colleges. Quite a deal for Zoom, for sure. You can get those accounts, if you don't already have one, by going to bring up a web browser, and on the location line in the web browser, typing confer Zoom, CONFERZOOM.org, and enter. Let me put that in the chat tool.
Dr. Dave,
Yes.
how about if we want to use Zoom for personal stuff like having Zoom meeting from Bethlehem with your
That's a very
families?
reasonable question.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Sorry, that was you know who from Amazon. I have an Amazon Echo serving as my speaker on this computer, and she thought she heard her name. Sorry about that. Of course, she says she's not listening, but I never know. It doesn't cost the state any more if you use your Confer Zoom account for personal reasons.
Okay.
So the ethics of it don't seem too negative.
No.
Not only that, but you get with Zoom, like anything else, you get better with it as you practice. So using it, if you're, I encourage people, especially when they're first starting out with Zoom, to hold Zoom meetings with people just for practice. And there's no particular reason I can see that shouldn't be someone in your family.
Yeah, I see my grandkids from Qatar, so it was fine.
Yeah, and you're not costing the state anything. You're getting better at Zoom. So to me, it seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Thank you.
Realizing, of course, I'm not the arbiter of the validity of that statement, but I don't buy. I do have a free Zoom account that I use for most of my personal meetings. But I do that mainly because this account that I'm using right now is the join link for this meeting has been spread to the four winds at the district, and people do just drop in occasionally looking to chat or whatever. So I try not to mix business and pleasure in that regard, but I don't think it's a major problem to use your Confer Zoom account for whatever purposes. Because it makes you a better Zoom user.
Thank you.
You bet. Good question. To get that account, you just, on this website, you go to the sign up button here. They've made this as simple as possible. Click that, fill out this form, just some very basic information. The email that you put in needs to be your district email, your EDU email address that identifies you as a California Community College employee, your organization being your college or your district in this case, either one, your classification being administrator, staff, or faculty, all are eligible, your title, mainly for their data collection, and a phone number where you can be reached. And then you just click sign up. Within some reasonable period of time, you should get an email from Confer Zoom giving you and letting you know that your account's been set up and giving you your access credentials for it. So that can be, that can take some time because you can imagine the demand is quite fierce right now, but they will get back to you.
Dr. Dave, are you going to go over? Are you going to go over how we can set the Zoom meetings instead of every time we give our students a number, they can use the same number as we are doing now?
I am.
Thank you.
I certainly am.
Dave?
That's the way I prefer to operate. Yes.
What, it's Randy Cottrell. What on this?
Hi, Randy.
Hi, on the screen right now, what is the heading classification? What do you do with that?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's just administrator, staff, or faculty.
Well, then what's the title below that? Wouldn't that be, what's the title?
assistant professor,
Oh, okay.
director of
So it doesn't really matter.
director of the Office of Queer Complaints. I was just watching an old Boris Karloff series on Amazon last night, where he was the Colonel March of the Scotland Yard. So yeah, whatever your employment title is.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think they worry too much about that one. As long as you have that EDU email address and it's identifiable as one of the California community colleges, you're fine. Okay, so that's a pretty simple process. Let me get back to my outline here. There we are. Just trying to keep track of myself here. All right, once you get your Zoom account, how do you get started? How do you start a Zoom meeting? Well, there's a number of ways to do that. I'm going to show you a couple of them, and in the process show you how to access your account management screens at Zoom. These Confer Zoom accounts are special only in that they are provided as a group by the State Chancellor's Office through the CCC Confer, the California Community Colleges video conferencing organization, which is based over at Palomar College, not too far away. But they are all just Zoom accounts with the company Zoom, and you can access the company website to access your account management screens by webbing to zoom.us. I'm not even going to worry about putting that one in the chat tool. We can remember that. Zoom made a point of making their web address, their URL, as simple as possible. It's just one of the things that made them so successful. So if you just type zoom.us in the address line of your browser and press enter or return on a Mac keyboard, you go
I like this. Easy.
You go to the, and I need to log out real quick here. I thought I already was. This is what you'll see, or something similar. They change the graphics on their homepage from time to time. But the important part here is on this bar at the top. There's a sign-in button. That allows you to access your Zoom account. If you click sign in, you then use the email address and password that you were provided by Confer Zoom. My email address is a little different because of some history I had with both CCC Confer and Zoom before the Confer Zoom accounts became a reality. So mine is not my district email, but yours will be. And then your password is whatever was created with your account. You'll be informed of that or asked to pick it. And then you just click sign in and you have access to your Zoom account management screens.
Dave, on that password, can you put in any password you wish, or do you have to use one you've already been using, or what?
You will be, I believe they assign you a password, but you can change it.
Okay.
Under your profile here on the Zoom screen. I believe, yeah, here we go. Here's your sign in password, and you can edit it and change it. So you get to determine what your password is. Though if you change it and you forget it, well, that's all right. They have a forgotten password dialog as well. That's not a problem. Okay, by default, you'll see your meetings page from this menu over here on the left when you log in. And there's a number of things you can do from this page. But since we're beginning here with how do you start a Zoom meeting, there's a number of ways to do that. You can go right here to this link on the website that says host a meeting, and you can choose to host it with your video off or on. and just start the meeting that way. However, that's what's called an instant meeting in Zoom jargon. But that can result in that can cause problems.
Being in the wrong class.
Yeah, you can end up in the wrong room or a different room from the one that your students are in.
That happened to me.
Yes, it's happened to all of us, I assure you. So what I like to do is I always like to use what's called my personal meeting room. And you see that listed here on this page, right there. And I can access the settings for my personal meeting room by clicking on that phrase. And I see my information about my personal meeting room. This is a meeting room I always have and whose access information never changes.
Okay.
So I like to use my personal meeting room exclusively when I'm holding Zoom meetings. Not everyone feels that way, but I'm very concerned about people not being able to access one of these sessions because they don't have the right access information.
That's right.
And it's, like I say, it's happened to all of us who have used Zoom over time. It's the only way I've ever seen Zoom really fail, was when the presenter ends up in one room in the Zoom meeting room and the attendees end up in another. And there are a number of ways that can happen. So I like to use this personal meeting room. You probably noticed when you got the email from Mary Kingsley that told you how to get into this room, that there was a join link, a URL in that email that you could click on and go right into the meeting.
It doesn't work with me.
I'm sorry, I don't. Some email clients are less.
And I found the number.
Good.
I used my phone. Yeah, I used my phone and I found the number, and then I went and logged in. You know, I did the laptop.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that would be happening, because normally it's quite effective. I'm not sure what's happening there, but that link doesn't change. If you've gotten a number of those emails, you've noticed that link's always the same. That way, if someone doesn't get the current email, they can just go back to an old one and click on that same link and get here. And that's critical. If people can't get into your meeting, obviously Zoom's not going to do you much good. So I like to invariably use this personal meeting room. The Zoom meetings are identified by a meeting ID.
I use this one.
A 10-digit meeting ID. And also by a so-called invite or join link, which you can customize. Obviously, I've customized this one. Usually, this would just have a number here. Indeed, this number. But that's not, either way it works in this case. You don't have to customize the link. I was just playing around. But if you provide this link or this meeting ID, your students can get into your meeting. You can choose or not to require a meeting password, which provides additional security. And that's not an entirely unimportant consideration, because by using your personal meeting room access information, which does not change, you slightly increase the risk of someone intruding upon your Zoom meeting and trying to be disruptive. That is sometimes called Zoom bombing and was an entertainment for people of great boredom and low intelligence for a while. It can be disruptive. Zoom's gone a long way toward providing you with tools to alleviate that sort of behavior very quickly, but it is a slightly increased risk. However, I have given hundreds of Zoom meetings over the last few years, And I have been Zoom bombed exactly once, and I've always used my personal meeting room. So the frequency of it happening is very low. It's not something that that I spend a whole lot of time worrying about. And the advantages of using my personal meeting room far outweigh any minor hassles in having to throw somebody out of my meeting who's trying to be disruptive.
Dave?
There,
Yes.
Dave.
I have a question. How do we give this information to our students? Because the whole idea of setting up the meeting and having our idea is that
that's the very
somewhere
next
on our
thing.
syllabus, perhaps?
You want it to be readily accessible, but not too public. So you may want to consider that. Doing it through Canvas in some way so that only the students who are in your class who should be joining your meeting can access it is generally a good idea. I'm going to go into more detail on that in a minute because that's the very next line in my outline here.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a very timely question. Okay, let's see now. I can get back to where I was. Whoop, that's not it. Meeting info. There we go. Oh, confusing an old man. So if you're going to use your personal meeting room, one way to start a meeting is to just go to the Zoom website as we have here, sign in, go to the meetings link, which should be the first thing that pops up. And if you click into your personal meeting room, there will be a button right here where you see this button that says, well, let me move that button over so I'm absolutely certain you can see it. This button here that says join now for me right now, because I'm in a meeting, obviously.
Okay.
If I were not in a meeting, that button would say start meeting.
Okay.
And that starts a meeting, but it starts it in your personal meeting room. So you know that this join link and this meeting ID are valid for your attendees. So that's the best way I know to be absolutely certain that you're starting the Zoom meeting in your personal meeting room. You can make it even less likely that you would ever end up starting a meeting by accident in a different meeting room with a different meeting ID and invite link by going to your meeting settings. And we want to look at these for a minute anyway to give you an idea of some of the things you can control about how your Zoom account functions. We can go to the settings link here in the Zoom account menu. And by all means, please let me know if I start talking about something that you can't see, and it seems like I'm expecting that you can. I would be very appreciative if you'd let me know, because any of us can forget what we're doing. You get thinking about what you're presenting and less about the nuts and bolts of using Zoom. The next thing you know, you're talking about things that people can't see. And that happens to me at least once in every class. So please let me know if I start doing that. I will only be appreciative. There are a few especially interesting settings here that I'll mention, but the first ones I want to talk about are under meeting settings. First one is set by default to enable your personal meeting ID. This provides you with your personal meeting room and your personal meeting room ID, and that is normally turned on by default. The two that are not turned on by default that I like to set tell Zoom to use your personal meeting ID when you're scheduling a meeting or when you're starting an instant meeting. Those are not turned on by default, but you can turn them on just by clicking on the little buttons there. And blue is on. This almost completely assures you that no matter how you start a Zoom meeting from your account, you will be using your personal meeting room. And I keep those on.
Those 4.
There's one exception to that I'll go over here in a few minutes. That you can also decide whether or not to require a password for that personal meeting. That's an extra layer of security you can use to minimize the chance that somebody is going to try to break in and disrupt your meeting. It's also an extra hurdle that your students have to leap over in order to get into your meeting.
Yeah, but if there is someone interested to be in your class, why not?
Well, there have been some rather nasty incidents
Okay.
of people just deciding to be disruptive
Oh, no.
showing pornography, sharing their screens,
my
showing
God. No,
pornography, or beheading videos and things like that. So it can be nasty, but you can very quickly eliminate that sort of problem without having to make it difficult for your students to access your meetings. Those are, I think, the only settings I'm going to talk about right this minute, though I'll answer questions about any others that you have later. But
Dr.
there
Dave,
are quite, yes.
For example, if I'm not ready at the scheduled time, but my students, they want to get in, they want to join. So it is open for them to join, right?
Not unless you set a setting. That's a good question. Another setting that's right here at the top is called Join Before Host.
Yes. Okay.
If you turn that on and do one other thing, students will be able to enter your Zoom meeting just as you were able to, some of you were able to enter mine before I arrived.
Right.
And talk to one another, and just like, meeting in the classroom before the instructor gets there.
I like this
if
one,
you turn this on, they can do that. There is one other thing you have to do, though. You also have to go back to your meetings tab here and to your personal meeting room. And you have to click the meeting option, enable join before host, on your personal meeting room as well. It doesn't seem like you should have to do that. You should be able to just select that option in your meeting options and it should work, but it doesn't.
Without this,
You have to edit your personal meeting room using this button down here, and you have to make sure that enable join before host is checked. If you do that and then save that option, you should be fine.
Thank you.
And that's I like to do that.
Yes, I do too.
Okay, so that's how we can start a meeting in our personal meeting room. We can also schedule meetings in advance. And if you have set that option that said, use my personal meeting ID if I'm scheduling a meeting, then if you schedule a meeting, it will also, in advance, it will also use your personal meeting room. I've always viewed schedule a meeting as unnecessary. I make it known by other means when the meeting will be and what the access link is, and then I just start the meeting manually a few minutes before the scheduled time. So,
Dr. Dave?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have so many questions because I'm really very interested in this. About schedule the meeting. Isn't it if I'm afraid one day maybe will not be available for me and the time that I want, or it is going to be always available?
This is always available to you. You don't have to schedule a meeting to reserve a slot.
Oh, okay. That's
you can start a meeting from your personal meeting room at any time.
Okay.
Without having scheduled it in advance. So this is not a big deal one way or the other as far as I'm concerned. So that's one way to start a meeting. Another way to start a meeting is through what's called your Zoom desktop client. If you're using a computer, which I would urge you to do, if you are hosting Zoom meetings, you really need to host them from a computer. That you have capabilities that you will not have otherwise.
Yes.
And if you are starting your Zoom meeting from a PC or from a Mac, the first time you enter your Zoom meeting room, you will get downloaded to your computer automatically. You don't have to do anything to make it happen. It just happens automatically when you try to start your first meeting. A so-called Zoom desktop client. And this is something you can bring up anytime by running the application associated with it. On this Windows PC, for instance, it's in my Start menu here.
Oh.
And I can just click that to start my Zoom client. I have to be logged into my Zoom account to start a meeting anyway, so this allows me to do that. It's another way to log into your Zoom account without going to the Zoom website.
Okay.
And normally when I'm not in a meeting, there are 4 icons here on this in this window, and this one says start a new meeting. And since I have specified in my Zoom meeting settings to always use my personal meeting room, if I start a Zoom meeting from my Zoom client, I'm dropped into my personal meeting room. But the only way to but that depends on my having set that option in my Zoom meeting settings. The best way to be absolutely certain that you're starting your Zoom meeting in your personal meeting room is to log into the Zoom website, go to the meetings menu, click personal meeting room, and click start meeting. That button will be right here. And that, I guarantee you, will put you into your personal meeting room. So that's a couple of different ways you can start a Zoom meeting. The next question, as was pointed out by one of you just a few moments ago, is, okay, you're in your Zoom meeting. How do you get your students in there with you? Not much good if you're in there by yourself.
Dave, before you do that,
Yes.
there's another way
Yes.
also, because there's also a way to do it through Canvas. Were you going to show that, or?
I am, with warnings, yes.
Okay.
We'll talk about that a little later. You're absolutely right. Okay. To provide access to your students to your meetings, you can provide them with your meeting ID and instructions on how to go to the Zoom website and join a meeting.
Okay.
Or you can just provide them with your invite link, which again may or may not be customized like this. This is what, let's see. Let's go to the personal.
So they have to have a Zoom account too?
No, good question.
No?
No, your students do not have to have a Zoom account. Only the host of the meeting has to have a Zoom account. The students will get the client, but they don't have to have a Zoom account. They can get a free basic Zoom account for themselves so that they can talk to their family and to each other and so on if they like. And that's a wonderful thing for them to be able to do. But they don't have to have it to attend your meetings.
Okay, how to instruct them, to come to a Zoom meeting? Can you please go over the steps?
That's what what we're about to talk about.
Okay.
So you can provide them either with the personal meeting ID or the join link I have two, one customized, one not. Either
Okay.
one will work. You either have to provide them with this meeting ID and instructions, or just provide them with this link so they can click on it and go
Okay.
right into your Zoom meeting, just as the bulk of you did today with mine. So how do you provide that to them? Well, you can provide either one to them in an email.
On Canvas?
From Canvas or from whatever. Any way you might send an email. This obviously requires you to do that over and over again. There are easier ways probably for you to provide that link to them and provide it to them securely. It's not a good idea, especially if you're using your personal meeting ID, to publish this in a public forum. The people who were having this horrific trouble I described earlier were posting their personal meeting links on places like Facebook and Twitter, which are public forums, where anyone in the world could find them and dive in, and people did. That's not a good idea. But you can provide this to your students, ideally through something like Canvas. Let me just pull up a Canvas course here. He said, yoo-hoo, Canvas. There you are. And I could go to my modules, the core of my Canvas course, and I could post my Zoom meeting link right here in my Getting Started module. I can just post it as an external URL, a web link. Let's see, I don't think I copied that. That was incautious of me. Let me copy. Either one of these links will work equally well. Go back to Canvas, paste that into the URL box for my external URL, and then give it a name. This is my Zoom meeting room. And it's probably best, something like this, to load it in a new tab, to load the link in a new tab, a new browser window, and then just add the item. Now, all my students have to do when I schedule a Zoom meeting or hold a Zoom meeting, to access it, all I have to do is come and click on this link in Canvas and let a new window open, and the process of joining the Zoom meeting begins. Very similar to what you did to get into this meeting today. I'm going to cancel out of that since I can't join my own meeting twice from the same client. I'd be chasing my tail for sure. But that's a perfectly reasonable way of providing your students access. You do, of course, have to tell them when your meetings are, when you expect them to be there. You can put links to your Zoom meetings into modules like this, and you can also put a schedule in. You can create a Canvas page. We'll call it Zoom schedule. And we can go in and we can edit that page. And we can say, edit, thank you. Canvas is busy too. We could say, you know, here's a Zoom meeting, or something more clever than that. I'm sorry, I'm old. Cleverness is no longer an option for me. And we could just say one today, June 15th. 2 p.m. And they could know to go and click on that Zoom link in the module, or with a page, I can even make this a hyperlink. I can highlight the date and time, click the link to URL button, paste that same URL in here and insert the link. And save that. Of course, I could put more in there as well. And now a student would come along and click on that link and boom, open up Zoom, and that has the access information embedded in it for my personal meeting room. So not only will they go into a Zoom meeting every time, they'll go into the right Zoom meeting every time. So those are some strategies you can use to provide your students access to your Zoom meetings through Canvas. Or you can just email that link to them. Or you can do it in any one of a number of other ways that would fit your needs. But since you all probably will be using Canvas as well, this is a very effective way to do this. And the students never have to wonder how to get into your Zoom meetings. You can also put them as events on your Zoom or in your Canvas calendar. I get the two confused for some reason. Yoo-hoo, calendar, there we go. By adding an event to your calendar and putting the link in there. So there's all sorts of different ways you can notify your students of when your Zoom meetings are and provide them with the information they need to access that meeting.
Dave?
So those are some suggestions. Yes.
Is there anything wrong with simply emailing them the link a day or two or whatever prior to the actual meeting date and time?
Nothing wrong with that.
That's the way one of the other instructors and I are sharing a class on Saturday mornings, and he was doing Zoom. Now, I was not involved in the Zoom part. I was pretty much a student myself at that point, but he would simply send out a couple of days early just a general email with a link to it and tell you what date and time, and there you go.
That's true. But realize that email is an imperfect communication tool. If you're sending it, especially if you're sending it to the students' personal email boxes, it might get marked as spam.
Yeah.
The student might not check the email, or they might accidentally delete it or just forget it. If it's always in Canvas as a link, they can't lose that. And it's kind of upfront to them as well. But in fact, a combination of strategies is usually a pretty good idea. I don't have to tell you that subtlety will get you nowhere with students. Another thing, so probably the wise instructor does not rely on any single means of communication to make sure that their students know when their Zoom meetings are and how to get into them. Another thing you can do is use the announcements tool in Canvas and post an announcement, which is basically just like putting a paper sign up on the wall, the door of the classroom, where you can also put your personal meeting links in there so that they have it. And I don't think you can over communicate in an online course. So all of those are valid strategies, and combinations of them are likely to get you even more attendance.
Dave, when you just put the ID number into that announcement, it didn't come up as a hyperlink. How would you get it to be a hyperlink so they can just punch
in
it?
the announcement? Sorry about that. Yeah. If I just put that URL in there, what I would have to do to make this a hyperlink is to highlight it, go to the link to URL or hyperlink button, the little chain link here, and then paste it again there and insert it. And now that's an active hyperlink.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. I was taking a shortcut. Sorry about that. Thank you for calling me on it. Okay. Oh, and I have to give this a title. Zoom meeting today. And save. Then when the student enters the course by default in a Canvas course, when they enter enter Zoom, they'll see the 3 most recent announcements that they've been sent at the top of the page. And that helps make it more likely that they'll see that, but you can never be sure. All righty. Yes, April.
Yeah, if we're teaching a class, let's say Monday, Wednesday from 8 to 10:30, and it's a given, we're going to meet it every time, do you have to announce it then every time? In other words, this is simultaneous.
Well, it just depends on whether it works or not. If you wouldn't think you'd have to, but you may want to. You may get more students attending if you remind them every time. That's why Mary sends out those messages at the beginning of every week. So, and sometimes multiple times during the week. And you wouldn't believe how many more people I get in these meetings when she does that than if we don't do that.
So our students, even though they're enrolled in the class, they wouldn't realize that when the teacher says it meets Monday, Wednesdays from 8 to 10:30, it wouldn't dawn on them to click on the link each time to join the meeting at that time?
Would students do that? Surely not.
Well, do some pretty silly things, but it is an issue though, because
what I'm trying to make any of us might forget. So the more reminders you give, the more successful you're going to be. I gave up years ago putting up sign-up sheets for these sessions and things like that, because invariably the people who signed up in advance would not show up. And most of the people who showed up were people who just heard about it that day and happened to have some time. So I'm a little cynical about scheduling things. And of course, my students are you all. So, and I certainly, anticipate that you will be more responsible than the average 18-year-old. But even so, I find that I'm much more successful if I just continue to beat the drum all the time. You can't over communicate in an online course. And the 3 most important things in an online course are communication, and communication. I see people nodding their heads. Yeah, you just can't do too much of it.
Yeah, I keep mine on the home page so that it protects me when you can get it, and it's clear. But I also have a backup because there's always a student, especially students who are going on a phone or have the tablet. Sometimes they say, "Oh, I couldn't get in," or a student has other reasons. So I have a backup, and I think I showed it to you, Dave. A very long list, and so eventually they do get in. So because it was taking up too much time. When a student kept saying, I can't get in, and sometimes it was their Wi-Fi and everything, but I had a backup for that. But if you put it on the homepage, it protects you, when you tell a student, they say, I didn't get it. Well, you can't prove they didn't receive it, but you can prove.
Exactly. So
like multiple ways it protects you as an instructor. Especially adjunct.
Well, but even more importantly, it makes it more likely that your students are going to be able to join you. So it's worth doing. I agree 100%. You can't over communicate that. So once you get your once you start your Zoom meeting and you get your students into it, how do you manage and control your Zoom meeting as a host? To show you that, I'm going to take you through the Zoom host menu, which is a little bit different than the menu that you're seeing as a participant or an attendee, because the host has capabilities that an attendee wouldn't, which is no surprise. All right, I believe, and inform me if I'm wrong, I believe you're seeing my Zoom screen right now. with, and I'm in what's called gallery view. This is how I like to run a Zoom meeting, because I can see you all at the same time that I'm talking. This is one of Zoom's best features to me, and it's something that's implemented better in Zoom than any other video conferencing system I've ever used. This is called gallery view. The default display in Zoom is something called speaker view. And I believe you can, let's see if I get that out of the way of any video windows you might have up there. I believe you can see this little button in the upper right-hand corner here labeled speaker view. By the way, if you're having trouble seeing any of this on your computer screen or on your phone or tablet screen, you can make it bigger. If you look at the top of your screen, there'll be a little black button labeled View Options. And this is something your attendees have when you're sharing your screen with them. The attendees have the ability to change the way they see your shared screen. Make it bigger, put it side by side with the little video images of the presenter and some of the attendees. And that's something worth playing with. And one of the things you can do, as I say, is zoom in so that you see things a little bigger. If you're on a tablet or a smartphone attending the Zoom meeting, which is perfectly common, indeed, many of your students, I'm sure you know, are taking their online classes on their phones. That didn't used to be practical before Zoom, the combination of Zoom and Canvas came along for us. But now it pretty much is. And to make what I'm sharing bigger on a tiny screen like a phone, you can pinch Zoom. You just put your forefinger and thumb together on the screen and spread them apart, and that should enlarge what you're seeing when I share my screen on your phone. And then you can use your finger to move the image around so you can see parts of the screen that have rolled off the sides of this phone display. And that should make it easier for you to see what I'm talking about. And that's something you'll want to know about for your students as well, because many of them are going to be attending your Zoom meetings on their phones, and quite effectively. But speaker view gives you a large view of one person in the meeting, the person who is speaking or spoke last. And you're seeing Kathy, because this is my viewpoint, not yours. And she was the last one who spoke before I did. There she is in all her glory. So it gives you a very good view of the speaker, but not such a good view of the other people in the meeting. Gallery view, which the button should have that name in it there if I make this a little bigger. Gallery view, which you can go to just by clicking on this button in the upper right at any time, gives you that Hollywood Squares view, which it gives me what I don't have in so many video conferencing tools that I did have in the classroom. The ability to sweep the room at a glance, at least among those who have got their webcams turned on. So I can see who's paying attention, who's not, who's bored, lost, more importantly, somebody over there with their eyes spinning around and so on and trying to hear, but not getting it. You can feel that sort of a thing in a classroom, either by looking, either by body language or looking them in the eye. And you can do that on Zoom as well. And you can tell, I don't know how you lecture without that kind of feedback, because it allows you to adjust your pace, to realize that something you just said just went right over everybody's head and you need to say it again in a different way. You've all had that feeling in the classroom. Well, with Zoom, you can get that same sort of nonverbal feedback from your students. And remember, 70% of communication is nonverbal. So Zoom gives you the option to recover that 70% of communication from your students that you're missing without something like this. So I love gallery view. Okay, now where was I before
Yes,
I
Dave,
went on that?
hey, Dave,
Yes.
Jim Capasso here.
Hey, Jim.
I'm using an iPad.
Yes.
Am I supposed to be getting the gallery view on my iPad? I don't
Actually, you don't on an iPad or on a phone.
Okay.
But you can swipe left and it will give you a gallery view.
Okay. Okay. I see a gallery view now, but I don't see the speaker view that you spoke about.
Well, speaker view is sweep right. Speaker view is the default. You don't get little buttons to switch back and forth. You just swipe screens left and right to switch between speaker view and gallery view. And thank you for bringing that up. I was about to forget to say that.
Mine is not doing that. I'm sweeping left, sweeping right, and nothing is happening. And it's a relatively new, it's an iPad Pro.
Okay.
So that is
interesting. I'm not sure what might be happening there. It does work on a phone, and okay. I can't say for sure. And it works on a Kindle. I haven't had an iPad for years, so I can't speak to that authoritatively.
Maybe that's a problem then.
Normally it does work, yeah, even on the iPad, I think. I'll look into that. Thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's see where we are. Right, we're going to go through the Zoom menus. We've already talked about the mute and unmute button. That's pretty straightforward. There is an audio menu right next to that that has a lot of stuff in it, which I believe you should be seeing right now. You can switch between different microphones if you have multiple microphones. If somebody's not hearing you, this is a place to look to see if you might have the right input device selected. You can select an output device. I'm using my Echo, my Amazon Echo, but I also have speakers. A couple of different sets of speakers I can use. I can test my speaker and microphones if I'm not sure things are working right. Yes, April. April, you're muted.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself. I asked this question in the chat and received an answer, and now I'd like yours. I've noticed when I've used Zoom that when I zoom in and attend, no problem with the sound. But when I am hosting, the sound from the other person breaks up. They can hear me. So you're saying if I go in to select a microphone, I might find a solution to that problem?
That sort of problem is usually associated with the internet connection of the person who, either yours or theirs. It can be hard to tell where the problem is. But usually when the sound starts to break up, it's because their internet connection is not handling that audio stream very well. And that unfortunately can happen.
Hey, Dave, I have an orchestra class, and so sound is very important to my class. I found if I go in and share computer sound, that makes the sound better for them. And I've had my students share the computer sound for when they play back to me, and that seems to have eliminated the breakup.
Well, that of course is when you're sharing your screen. That share computer sound option comes into play.
No, I don't really need.
Yeah, that you're talking about this screen right here. I believe you can see that white window right there. And this option down here in the lower left-hand corner.
Yes.
Yeah, that is in play only when you're sharing your screen.
On my computer, I was able to share not the screen, but share just the audio in the advanced mode. I think mine had an advanced mode down in that lower right-hand corner where you just
under audio settings.
Yeah, because that was a problem at first. I had to share the screen, but when I was playing recording for them to play along with, I finally was able to share just the audio in the advanced in the lower right-hand corner.
Oh,
yeah,
that button, right. Suppress.
Yeah, I got rid of. I
option to enable original sound from microphone. Is this the one you're talking about?
No, but I found disabling the suppress persistent background and suppress intermittent. I disabled both of those, and that helped the sound as well.
Right, right. Because Zoom is trying to keep background noise from interfering with the meeting, but in so doing, it can cut out some of the primary audio. And the default setting here is automatic, but disabling might be safer.
That helps.
If you have that problem a lot, that's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that. This could cause, these settings can cause problems. The echo cancellation you probably don't want to turn off unless you absolutely have to, because that helps to prevent what's called feedback loops from being set up.
Yeah. Which
can be very distressing. But that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. These things can cause problems of that nature. Okay. And then indeed, that's some of the audio settings that you do have. This also allows you to see if your microphone is working and set your output volume and input level if you're not automatically adjusting your input volume. There's not a whole lot else here to really worry too much about. One option you can select for yourself, it allows you to use the space bar like a push to talk button on a walkie-talkie. Rather than having to unmute yourself to talk, you can just push the space bar and hold it down, and that unmutes you temporarily. And then you can let it up, just like a CB or a walkie-talkie. But that you have to select that option to make that work.
Dave?
Okay. Yes.
If a student has problems with sound, this is good to know, but you said that sometimes you have to set it. Once they set it once, do they have to set it each time they use it? Or once they set it, should it be set?
It should remember the setting, yeah.
The setting, yes.
Because that goes into your Zoom client. You can turn your video on and off. We've talked about that using the Start Video button. Start and stop video. There's a video settings window, which allows you to pick, if you have multiple cameras, you can use multiple cameras with your Zoom session. I have several here that I can pick from. I've got another webcam over here on the side. And I've got a, well, that's enough of that. This security icon here is a relatively recent addition to the Zoom menus. It allows you to set certain security options right from here, rather than having to look for them elsewhere in the menus. Sometimes you need to find them in a hurry. You can shut off participant screen sharing by just clicking that. And if it's not checked, your participants can't share their screens. Or you can turn that back on. That can be one way that people can disrupt meetings. You can turn the chat tool on and off. You can prevent people from renaming themselves. Here I'm allowing that, but you can turn that off because sometimes the puerile will name themselves something naughty. And you'll see that on the screen, particularly in gallery view. You can prevent people from unmuting themselves. If you have someone who's saying something you don't want to share with the group, you can mute everyone and then you can prevent them from unmuting themselves. I'll show you how to do the mute all in a second. And you can prevent them from annotating shared content, from annotating your shared screens. Sometimes people will draw something nasty on your screen. Or try to, and you can turn that off just by going to this security icon and unchecking that. So those are quick fixes. You can also remove a participant from the meeting very quickly by clicking here. you get a list of participants in the meeting that pops up, and you can click remove for any of them. I won't do that to Kathy. But the nice thing about removing someone is they can't get back into this meeting. It won't let them back in. So you can, this is all useful if you're going to control an intrusion into your meeting. Related to this is the participants, the main participants tool. If you click on that, you'll see a list of everyone who's in your meeting. You can mute them if you need to, and you can see who's talking. See, you can see my entry there, and you can see my little microphone has a little bouncing indicator in it. That indicates I'm talking right now. So you can tell who's talking, and you can see visual indications that somebody has got background noise in their background, which is interfering with the meeting for everyone, and you can mute just them. But usually it's faster to just mute everyone by clicking this mute all button, and then leave people the option to unmute themselves so that they can speak to you. Yes, Bruce. And don't forget to unmute yourself. There you are. Good.
I did remember this time. So in your participants section, every time I've been in a meeting, been a participant in a meeting, in the participants section on the far left after yes, it has a little raised hand. So you can raise your hand to let the professor know that you wanted to add something.
Right, and you have that as an attendee. This is my hosts participants tool.
Right.
And I don't need to raise my hand.
How would you see then if you don't have that hand up? Because wouldn't it appear next to their name? It
appears down here at the bottom of the screen with the person's name. Okay,
but that's so the person who is have their hand up, that's highlighted at the bottom of the screen.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the participants tool. I'll pull that off screen. You can do polling. You can ask people to answer a question and show the results on the screen. That's not something we have time for today, but we do an intermediate Zoom session that we'll repeat from time to time where we go over things like polling and breakout rooms. The chat tool we've already talked about. Sharing your screen, we've talked about, and I've shown you a little bit about that. Let me reprise that. To share your screen, you click the, you click this button here, and that brings the green highlighted button. That's the one you use the most, so they have that very emphasized for you. And I believe you can see this white box here. And the share options screen, this is called, gives you the option to share different things and to choose whether you share your computer sound or whether you want to optimize your screen sharing if you're going to play a video. And these two options come into play mainly if you're going to show movies in class, just like my old coach used to. I'm a chemist by training, but my high school chemistry teacher was the groundskeeper at the local minor league ball team, baseball team. So he showed a lot of movies. You can show movies in class using Zoom, but you do have to share your computer sound if you're going to do that, because your students are going to need to hear the soundtrack of the video in all probability. This option, optimize screen sharing for video clip, gives you a little bit better quality for the video, but it also causes some other problems. So I don't generally use it, but it is an option. I do want to talk about what you pick here though. I would recommend always taking the default, and I see your hands, I'll get to you in just a sec. I would recommend always sharing your desktop or your full screen rather than sharing individual applications. If you share your screen or your i.e. your desktop, everything that appears on the monitor in front of you is shown to your attendees. If you pick individual applications like these down here, it'll only show them those. And if you try to show something else, it won't work. You have to cancel your share and start again. So far better to just take the default, which is to share your entire desktop. And then in order to activate the screen share, you click the blue button in the lower right-hand corner of this window labeled Share. Okay, now, Bruce and Kathleen, I've got you next.
Yes, we can share videos, let's say that we're taking off of YouTube. I know that you mentioned that the last time I was at one of these meetings.
Yes.
If we load in a DVD, if I have a DVD movie that I load in, that can also be shared in the exact same way, correct?
It will work. That is a prima facie copyright violation.
Right. Well, if I'm only using it for certain clips, this is, I'm teaching film, and there is the fair use agreement that was done.
Right, you can invoke, very good.
As long as I follow that, I'm
fair use. Yeah, yeah, and in that case, you're almost certainly okay. The operative word there is almost, always. Okay, there's fair use is a custom, not a law. And it's evaluated on a case-by-case basis if somebody sues you. Are you going to get into trouble doing that? Almost certainly not. I just mentioned that it is technically a copyright violation to do it without the permission of the copyright holder. But you can counter with fair use by saying, okay, I'm only showing portions of the work. I'm doing it for educational purposes. Only my students can see it, and so on. And you're almost certainly fine. But I just point out that it's not an absolute guarantee. And the cost of a single copyright infringement, I think, is $35,000. So it's something you always want to have in the back of your mind. Have I done it? Oh yeah, absolutely, I've done it. But I've always had that risk and the awareness of that risk in the back of my mind too, and I've been careful. And I have done my best to be ethical as well by not costing the copyright holder money, which you're not doing. If, on the other hand, you were to show an entire movie to your students off the DVD, that's something you can legally do in the physical classroom, but you can't on Zoom online, because that type of thing was specifically excluded from permissions under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. So, which sucks, but there it is. Great question.
What Swank is for.
Yeah. And Kathleen. Kathleen, I'm not hearing you. Darn. I'm sorry. Did your phone go to sleep on you? We're still not hearing you. I'm so sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Kathy.
All right. I don't know if I'm the one that sees it, but I noticed that there's a number 1 in the corner. And is that because it says screen 1, screen 2 from what you're showing on your desktop?
This computer has 3 screens. This computer has 3 screens on it. So it's telling me which screen is number 1, which one is number 2, and which one is number 3.
Because I never saw it when I was doing it with students. So do I need to upgrade?
You would only see that if you had multiple monitors.
Okay. And my second question was when you were talking about the participants, and I love the fact that when you see the participants, you can see their names and icons and their full name. And to me, that would be a better way to do attendance if I could get a screenshot, but there's nothing that, because like I have snippet, but I can't seem to get it in my screen because of the way it's constructed. Is there a way like control something?
If I make it big enough, you can, I think you should be able to use the snipping tool.
Okay.
And of course, this is just a snapshot in time
Right.
of who's in right now. But I believe I can do it with the snipping tool. Get a new snip here. Bada bing. Yep, there it is.
Okay.
So that will work. I also have Snagit available. I'm very fond of Snagit. So yeah, you could do that, but remember that only gets the people who
Is
are
that
in
because you're the host,
right
or
now.
because I'm trying to do it as a?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's certainly a reasonable possibility. Yes.
Because students don't always remember to sign in.
Nope. But they do come and go as well. Like we've still got 21 people, but it's not the same 21 we had 10 minutes ago. So people come in and out, which is wonderful. They can do that. You bet. Okay, now let's see. I gotta make sure I don't get to having too much fun here. Let me bring my or find my. There we go. Screen share, we've talked about. Recording your Zoom meeting. One of the best things about Zoom is that everything that you do in a live meeting, you can record, both the video and the audio. This includes your shared screens, any participant and host live video, and of course all the sound, both from the host and from the participants. So people can watch this recording later, if you put it online, and experience largely what they would if they had attended the meeting live. It's one of the most powerful things about Zoom. I am recording right now. So down here at the bottom of my screen, you see a stop and a pause button instead of the record button. If I were not recording, you'd see a button labeled record, and you can start your recording at any time. By default, only the host can record, though you can assign that privilege to other attendees if you so choose upon their request. But generally, the situation is that you as the host will record the meeting if you want it recorded, and then we'll put that recording online where the students can view it later. Zoom has the capability to record to 2 different locations. It can record to what's called the Zoom cloud, which is some online storage that comes with your Zoom account. That's very simple for you. If you record to the Zoom cloud, everything's pretty much automatic. The recording takes place. When you finish the meeting, it is, well, as you're recording, it is streamed to the Zoom cloud, to the Zoom servers. And when you finish the meeting, the recording's tied off and processed. And within a relatively few minutes, depending on the length of the meeting, you'll get an email from the Zoom that says, okay, your Zoom meeting is now, or your Zoom recording is now available. And a few minutes to hours after that, you should get a message that says your Zoom meeting has now been transcribed and the captions are read. So when you record to the Zoom cloud, not only do you get an online recording that your students can view later, but it's captioned so that it's accessible to people with hearing impairment. And that happens automatically. You don't have to do anything to make that happen. The captioning is fully automatic, and it's quite good. It's not perfect, but it's quite good in most cases. That's the easy way to do Zoom recording. That is the default setup for your, excuse me, for your Confer Zoom accounts. If you just hit the record button and don't worry about anything else, your recording is going to go to the Zoom cloud, and the students are, you're going to be able to provide the students with a link to it later. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. The other option is to record to the local computer. The recording then is sent to your local computer. When the meeting finishes, it is rendered into a format that is suitable for streaming. Boiled down, rendering literally means boiled down into a smaller file that can be shared across the internet. And then you have to manually upload that recording to a recording file to a video hosting service, classic example being YouTube, which is totally free. That's a little more work on your part. It does give you some advantages. Notably, you have unlimited space on YouTube, whereas on the Zoom cloud, you have 1 gigabyte of file storage, which sooner or later you will run out of. And you'll either have to delete some recordings or move them offline, download them, and have them not available online. Or you may, at that point, you may have to upload them to YouTube or some other option. Also, YouTube provides you with slightly better options for providing access to your videos in Canvas, your Zoom recordings in Canvas. And with the record to the local computer, you keep a local copy of your recording, so you have more control over it. Also, if you put the recording up on YouTube, you can pretty much trust Google is not going to use it for nefarious purposes. I don't think Zoom would either, but I feel like I have a higher degree of control of my recordings if I have them on my local computer and then I upload them to YouTube. But that's a personal preference, not necessarily valid for you. So those are your two options. You record to the local computer or to the Zoom cloud. As I say, recording to the Zoom cloud is, in terms of actually making the recording, is trivial. You just click the record button and it happens. You don't have to do anything else. To find your Zoom recordings is not trivial. You do have to look for those. You can find them on your Zoom, on the Zoom website. If we go in and log into Zoom as we did before, you will find if you go to the Meetings tab, I'm sorry, if you go to the Recordings tab, if you go to the Recordings link in the menu over here on the left, you'll see all of the cloud recordings that you have made. You can view any of them by clicking on the link here, the so-called topic, which they're all made from my personal meeting room. So you can view the recording by clicking on this little film frame icon. And there's the recording. You can play it. This is a re-recording.
Hello, everyone. Today we're going to
faculty member who was having trouble getting her video captioned on YouTube. But there are captions and there's a transcript. And you can edit the captions if they need it. You can just mouse over the caption, each caption in turn here on the right, and click the little pencil icon and edit this at need and save the changes. So, and that just happens. You don't have to do anything to make it happen. You can also get a shareable link for this recording by clicking on this button, which copies a URL for this video to the clipboard. Then you can go to Canvas, go to one of your modules, and wait for it to come up. There we go. You can add an external URL to your module, you can paste that link that you just copied to your clipboard in, and then give it a name. We'll just call it a Zoom Cloud recording in this case. It is essential in Canvas, if you make an external URL like this in a module, and for a Zoom video stored on the Zoom Cloud, that you select Load in a New Tab. If you forget that, it won't work. So load it in a new tab and click Add Item. Now the student comes along. If we publish this in Canvas, student can come along, click on this link, open a new window, and boom, there's the Zoom recording. Simple, quick, aproblematic. So that's how you can share your Zoom Cloud recordings with your students if they're on the Zoom, or yeah, your Zoom Cloud recordings. I said that, didn't I? Yeah. All right. The process of uploading this to YouTube is a little bit more involved. Not a whole lot. It does give you, as I said, certain advantages. Rather than spend a lot of time on that right now, because I have some other things I want to share with you, I'll be happy to go through this in more detail in a little while, but I do have tutorials for that. Whoop. And those tutorials can be found on our Open On Demand at SDCCD tutorial website, which is accessed at sdccdolvid.org. Let me put that in the chat tool, because that's something there's a lot of information on here you might want. And tutorial site. Okay, I just put that in the chat tool for you. There's a search box here. You can just type keywords into that, like Zoom and recording. Press enter to activate the search. And here we go, recording to your local computer in Zoom and loading the recording onto YouTube. We'll show you how to do this. This tutorial will show you what I just showed you on how to link your Zoom Cloud recordings into Canvas. And eventually, if you use the Zoom Cloud extensively, eventually you'll run out of space there, and you'll have to either delete those recordings if they're no longer needed, or move them to some place like YouTube in order to maintain your students' access to them. And this tutorial will show you how to do that. By the way, the recordings that we make of these Zoom training sessions are also available under the Workshop Archives button at the top of the screen on our tutorial website. If you click that, you'll see about 7 or 8 pages of Zoom recordings of the program, of the sessions we've already offered. Like here's a recording of the intermediate Zoom that we did a few weeks ago, showing you how to do things like breakout rooms and so on. Yeah. So that's always available to you. Now, there are a couple of other things though that I want to talk about first. We've already pretty much handled Zoom meeting security. Thank goodness Zoom has made that a lot easier and made it much more difficult for people to disrupt your Zoom meetings than it was the case before. But there are a couple more things I want to be sure to have time to talk about with you. One is a technique I call board casting. It's basically sometimes called whiteboarding. It's basically a way to fill in the major gap in capability vis-a-vis teaching on Zoom versus teaching in the classroom. one thing I have not mentioned at all yet to this point is how do you replace the whiteboard that is hanging on the wall in your classroom? Many of you use that extensively. Indeed, if you teach in a STEM subject, science, technology, engineering, or math, as I did for many years, I don't know how you get along without a whiteboard, because you have to draw diagrams and mathematical notations, which are just the very devil to type in on something like Word or the Canvas editor or whatever. It's really, you've got to be, if you're going to teach math or science, you've got to be able to draw on a whiteboard and write mathematical notation on a whiteboard. And that's true in many other disciplines as well. So how do you fill in that gap if you're having to teach on Zoom and you never get to see your students in a classroom? Well, there's several options in that regard. One of them is, let's see, this little devil here. I'm going to switch cameras. Remember, I showed you I can have multiple cameras here. I've got another webcam over here that will allow me to show you this little puppy, which is a USB document camera. This is an old one. They don't sell this one anymore. But the same company, which is probably the best company to get something like this from called IPEVO, makes a camera that's not too different, that's unfortunately more expensive than it used to be. This one I think I paid $60 for. Now they're like $100, but they give sharper images, they're more powerful, so you get something for your money. But this just plugs into a USB port on my computer, and it comes with an application that allows me to show you that will allow me to put on my screen whatever that camera is seeing. I can bring that application up. It's just a Windows or Mac application. It works on either type of computer. The company is called IPEVO, so the software is the IPEVO visualizer. I click on that and bring that up. Pretty soon I will be able to show you, hopefully, yes, what that camera is seeing. There's a minor problem here in that everything's upside down, but the software has a way to correct that. And if I keep going, I can get it right. Twitch, there we go. Okay, and I get this out of the way. Now, I can have a pad of paper down there, and I can write on it, just like I can write on a whiteboard. And I can be just as illegible on the piece of paper as I was on the whiteboard, often enough. We've all had that problem, but I can also draw mathematical symbols. I can draw out mathematical equations. I can draw chemical reactions, my personal application that I used on my whiteboard, yay, those many years ago when I taught chemistry. Before I started playing with toys instead. And it's quite legible. You can make it bigger, make it easier for the students to see. And it doesn't just have to be something you're writing on a pad of paper like this. It can be three-dimensional objects you can show. I often use it to illustrate how to do things on my smartphone. For instance, I mentioned earlier that people can very easily attend your Zoom meeting on a smartphone or a tablet. To do that, they of course, or not of course, but to do that, they first have to load a Zoom app, which is available for either iPhones or Android. Well, that's handy. Looks like my garden hose got delivered today. more than you needed to know. So whatever comes up on your smartphone camera, you can share with your, or a smartphone screen, you can share with your students. You do have to, in order to get into the meeting, you have to have the Zoom app. And you can join a meeting with the meeting. Well, if you send out the link in an email, the join link for the Zoom meeting, the student just tap on it and it'll go right in and it'll automatically start up the Zoom app. Or the student can start the Zoom app manually, click join, tap join a meeting and type in the meeting ID, which is, let's see if I can remember my personal meeting ID is 391499959. This is the part I always get it transposed. We'll see if I got it this time. Tap join. And yeah, I'll join with video. I'm not going to use the sound because if you're doing this sort of thing, you got to be careful that you don't have two devices in the same room in the same Zoom meeting and both of them with their microphone and speakers enabled. That's a classic recipe for a feedback loop where you chirp, 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 and the next thing you know, it's ear splitting and everybody is running for the exits. So I'm going to cancel the, and now I'm in the meeting on the phone too. This is also a useful technique in Zoom because if I share my screen, or let me put something on the screen here that's other than this. Of course, you now can't see the phone. So I can edge that over there. Now you can use the phone as a canary in the coal mine, a bellwether of whether you're sharing what you think you are with your students, because you can see what you're sending out. This helps to remove one stressor when you're doing a Zoom meeting. But anyway, it's very easy to get into the Zoom meeting on your phone. And you can show things like that. Anything that the camera sees, you can show to your students in real time. There's just one problem with these cameras. Well, more than one problem. One problem is they're not free. They cost, the one that you probably want costs $100. And the other problem is you're probably going to have a hard time finding it right now. They've become very hard to come by, very much in demand. We'll go and I'll search for it. Let's see how it is today on Amazon, IPVO document camera.
Only 6 left in stock.
Yeah, temporarily out of stock.
That's like the one in the classroom.
Yeah, this is the one you want. So what are you going to do? Well, it's quite possible for you to use your smartphone as a document camera. I can take my smartphone here, which I just put into the meeting. Let me find that. There I am. And I can do what's called a spotlight on this video. I can make it so this video is what you all see. And later. And now I can use my smartphone if I turn around the right way.
Oh, okay.
And I can use it as a document camera. Just one problem. My arm is going to get tired. And not to mention I'm a little twitchy at my age. So how do you avoid that? Well, let me switch cameras here for a minute and cancel the spotlight on this video. Come on, cancel the spotlight. There we go. Now, let me go back to gallery view. I have this other camera over here that I'm showing. Here's my solution to that. It's a little tripod. I got this on Amazon for $30. and it has a cell phone holder on the end and a little gooseneck on the top so that you can bend around, and you can take the cell phone and snap it into that holder, and now I've got a document camera. I already have the cell phone, so this only cost me 30 bucks. Let me spotlight that video again so everybody will see that. And I forgot to get the smartphone into landscape mode before I flipped it over there. There we go. And now, let me make sure I've got it right side up. Yep, that works better. This thing is new, so it's stiff. So now I've got myself a document camera for 30 bucks, and it works quite well. The device in question, if I bring it over here, I go back to Amazon, is, let me go to my orders so I remember which one it is. Going to be a little slice of life here. There it is. Okay. Only one left in stock. This one goes in and out of stock, but there's another one that's almost identical to it right here that works fine, would work fine too. But this one I like a lot. It's nice and sturdy. It was, what are they? Oh, you can buy it used for $26, even better. And what? Oh, that's the used one that they're the $32, I think, is what I paid for this one new. So, you know,
Plus they pay for shipping.
Yeah, but yeah, so this one is Prime, it's free shipping. It's basically the same thing, and it works like a charm. It would work like a charm. So that's just an option for getting yourself a document camera without having to pay $100 for it and without having to wait for it to come back in stock. Okay. And we've talked about using Zoom on mobile devices. Last thing I want to mention is Canvas integration with Zoom, because Canvas, and we've already touched on that a bit. I've shown you how you can put links to your Zoom meetings into Canvas and how you can post a schedule for your students in Canvas. But there is a tool in Canvas that you can also use. And to show you that tool, I have to log out as me and log in as an alter ego, because my primary account doesn't work with this. And this is one of the reasons I don't really recommend this, but I want to show it to you. I can pick a pick a Canvas course here, and I picked a bad one because that doesn't have the link in it. Let me find one that does. There it is. You will, by default, in your Canvas course, have an entry in the course menu labeled Confer Zoom. That is an app that allows you to integrate Zoom with Canvas. And in many ways, it's kind of neat. If I click on that, I can, if I've scheduled meetings, I can see the schedule right here, and your students can see the schedule as well. I can even quick launch it right now if I want to. I can access my event recordings. I'm not sure why that's pulling up, not pulling up right now. But so this gives you, and your students, as I say, can see some of this as well. So they can see upcoming events here and click right into your Zoom meeting. There are two disadvantages to this app that cause me not to use it.
Oh.
Two principal ones. One you can't use your personal meeting room with it. They, in the interests of security, misplaced interests in my view, they have fixed it so that every time you either quick launch a meeting or schedule a meeting, you get a different meeting ID.
That's a bummer.
And that, you know, you can argue that, well, that doesn't matter because the students can come in here into Canvas and find this meeting under this upcoming events column and click into it from here. They don't have to know the meeting ID, or they don't have to have the link. But students will forget and try to use an old link, and they won't get into your meeting. The other issue is that if you're going to use this Confer Zoom app, the email address that you associate with your Canvas account has to be your EDU account, your district email, which means that every message that Canvas sends you, and Canvas can get to be a chatty little devil depending on how your notification settings are set up. Every one of those messages goes into your somewhat limited district email account. And it gets mixed in with all the other messages that are sent to you in that account. So it gets to be problematic. Yeah, I'm just not willing to put up with that. So I don't use the Confer Zoom app much, except to show it to people occasionally. That's a personal decision. You can decide. So that's why I didn't start off showing you how to start a Zoom meeting or get your students into a Zoom meeting this way, because this is certainly an optional way to do that. And somebody had asked about that earlier. I'd asked about the integration with Canvas. I just don't think the downsides are worth the upsides of it, but that's a personal decision that you would make. And I've shown you pretty much everything you need to know, I hope, about how to use Zoom effectively with Canvas without having to use the Confer Zoom app. But there's no doubt that the Confer Zoom app would be somewhat more convenient in some cases. For one thing, it gives your students a place to click in the course menu to access your meetings, which is kind of nice. You can, however, put a link to your personal meeting room in your course menu as well in Canvas. That's what I've done here. This is a link I made in my Zoom, in my course menu. And if I open a new tab, this is going to take me, see, well, that's not the right one. It's going to take me to my personal meeting room. It'll take my students to my personal meeting room as well. So that makes it real easy for them to find out how to get into my Zoom meetings. You can easily create a link like this in a course by going to your settings menu in the Canvas course menu and going to the apps tab at the top of the screen here, apps right there. Click on installed so you don't get a list of a million apps, Canvas apps that you can't use because they're not installed on our system. And then you look for this swooshy arrow here, the right blue arrow called the redirect tool. If you click on that and click add app, you just this is going to create a link in your course menu to a resource outside of Canvas. In this case, my Zoom meeting room, I'll name it something different so we can distinguish this link from the one I'd already created. Then I just put my Zoom join link in here in this URL redirect box. I have to go back to Zoom to remember that. Let's say go to my profile. Here's my Zoom meeting link. I can use either one of the customized one or the uncustomized one. I just copy that to my clipboard, go back to Canvas, paste it in right here. And I probably want it to show in course navigation as well. In other words, that'll make it show in the course menu. And maybe account navigation as well. Then I just click Add App. Now if I refresh the screen, I have a link in my course menu that I just created that will send me or my students directly to my personal meeting room. So another way to do things that doesn't use the Confer Zoom app, doesn't lock you into using your district email address with Canvas, and doesn't prevent you from using your personal meeting room, and almost ensuring that your students can get into your meeting should they choose to attend. The end. That, I think, got me to the bottom of my outline here. It is everything I habitually like to show in a basic introduction to Zoom, and I'm only 9 minutes late. I'm sorry about that I'm late, not that I'm not later. Now, let me bring up the chat tool here, because I've seen some good questions put into there that I haven't had time to address. And I'm going to answer those first, and then I'm going to throw the meeting open for general questions about Zoom or anything else you want to ask about. I will stay here as long as you have questions. And still got 22 people. Gee whiz. Y'all need to get a life spending 2 hours with me here this afternoon. Oh, gosh. Okay, let's see. How do you spotlight someone? Good question. Just talking about that. To spotlight someone, you go to gallery view. Spotlight means to make sure that everybody who's in speaker view sees a particular video. And to spotlight someone, like Kathleen here, and I'm still sharing this, so you should see this. I can just right-click on Kathleen and select Spotlight Video. And now everybody sees Kathleen, big Kathleen. and your very nice looking glasses. So that that's how you spotlight someone. You can cancel that at any time as the host by canceling the spotlight. So good question. And I'll go back to gallery view.
Thank you.
You bet. Trust me, that's why I spotlighted you instead of me. Also, let me put my camera, my front-facing camera back on. There we go. All right. My new mic doesn't work. Keep thinking of a new industry, Procter and Capital. Procter, sorry, keyboard's fighting me. Okay. Yeah, normally Zoom is very good about detecting microphones that are plugged in, but it can sometimes become confused about which one to use, especially if you've got this many options. So you do have to check and see which, oh my gosh. For instance, I'm not using the microphone I thought I was. I hope have you all been hearing me okay? I've got a little boundary, what's called a boundary mic here plugged in that I illustrate when I'm talking about video production. It's a little like something you've seen in a video conferencing room and so on. It sets on a surface and it can pick up sound from sometimes 25, 30 feet away. So it's a good thing to use if you're running like a meeting with a bunch of people in a physical location. And that's the microphone I've been using without even realizing it. Normally, I like to use the one that's built into my webcam, which is an excellent. This webcam I'm using is a Logitech C920, and it has excellent microphones. Please give me your email address. I would be happy to. I'll put it in the chat tool. It's DGIBERSO at.
I can't hear you now.
Oh.
Can't hear you.
Uh-oh, thank you. I don't know what happened there. How about now?
Yay.
Okay, I'm not going to mess with my microphone settings then. I'm not sure what happened there. It should have worked, but okay. As long as you're hearing me, we're good. I'm going to, I had a question about my email. Somebody wanted my email address. I'm putting it into the chat tool for everyone. dgibberso, no N, at SDCCD, usual. Okay, that's in the chat tool. Now let me get back up to where the questions were. I don't suppose the district has a secret warehouse stuffed with webcams. Boy, don't I wish. Of course, if they did, they'd probably be able to solve their budget problems by gouging people for them. There's a solution for not having a webcam as well. You can, in fact, use your smartphone as a webcam, given certain stipulations. Let me show you how that can work. There are a number of smartphone apps that will allow you to turn your smartphone into a webcam, and a pretty decent one. Is called, the one I've tried is called Epoch Cam. I'll put that in the chat tool. From a company called Kinoni. Obviously not from these parts, but it works great. It works on both the iPhone and an Android phone, but I think the iPhone version is supposed to be better. That's what I have. And in order for it to work, you have to connect your computer and your phone either by a Wi-Fi connection, which means your computer has to be on Wi-Fi and your smartphone has to be on the same Wi-Fi network, or you can plug the smartphone into the computer using the charging cable that comes with the phone. And then you download and install a small application, a driver from Kinoni, which is free, and just install that on your computer, and then reboot your computer. It doesn't work unless you reboot your computer after you install the driver. Ask me how I know that. I noticed they've emphasized that later. Please remember to install, and they're not telling you there. You have to reboot the computer. But then you can do something like this. See if I can get it to work. Ouch. Snap. I've got to get the smartphone out of the meeting first. Can't be doing this and that at the same time. Now I've got to find that app. I can show you that using the document camera. There it is. I gotta turn it upside down again, or right side up again. This app is, let me zoom in a little bit. Epoch Cam. And there are alternatives to this. It's not the only. And one of these is the free one, and one of these is the paid one. When I got it to work, I tried the free one and it worked. So you have extra capability. The paid one is like $8. It's not the end of the world. So I click on that. it starts to connect to the computer. And if the stars are aligned, it's now connected. And you can't tell because it's trying to use the back camera, which is laying on the paper. So I have to change the camera I'm using to the front. What do you mean ding? There. Now, and now I have it working. Now I go to Zoom, and this shows up to Zoom as a camera on the camera list in this little video settings menu to the right of the little camera here. And now I'm using my smartphone as a camera. It even works with a virtual background. So I'm using my iPhone as a webcam. Work even better if I use the back camera, because that's a better camera. Flip that around here. Yeah, well, the camera's better. I can't say the image is. I can't say that seeing me better is a plus, but the back camera does work a little better on the smartphone. So that works. And this is where something like this tripod comes in handy. Trying to show the tripod. Gotta be there somewhere. Oh, I'm pointing, I've got the wrong camera. That's where this tripod really comes in handy, because you don't have to hold your phone. Oops. I just lost track of it. I'm not quite sure why. Oh, I think I hit a button when I was moving that around. Anyway, you did see it work until I hit something. So you can quite effectively use your smartphone as a webcam, as well as a document camera, but you can't do both at the same time. You can either use it as a webcam or a document camera, but not both at the same time. So that might say, because webcams are even harder to find than document cameras right now. So it is an option. If you're about to have to start teaching a class in the second 4 weeks of the summer, and you're planning to use Zoom, and you're desperately wondering if Amazon is going to deliver your webcam in time for you to get started, this will work pretty well. You can also buy little tripod holders like this for your iPhone that goes on top of a standard little tripod that you can buy at Walmart or whatever, that will hold your phone for you. They probably cost about the same amount as this one I've showed you here. So, but sometimes you can get them very cheaply. I've seen them in the thrift stores, little photo tripods. So those are options. All right, let me go back and get some more questions here.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? I'm on my phone because I have to figure this out later.
That's good, Kathleen. Okay. Sorry about the.
Okay.
Sorry you're having trouble with the computer. Okay.
I had to dash out and get Father's Day cards. It just dawned on me. I have all these fathers on the East Coast, and they've got to get their card.
Oh my!
I'm so sorry. And I know you were talking to the gentleman, I forget, I'm looking for him, but he's not here anymore, who also taught film. And so I have tried to share films for my film class that I have purchased, and I have an external drive to show it on my computer. It looks great on my computer, horrible to them. The sound is awful, the image is digital, so I don't do it, and I can't do it. But we have Swank at Miramar College, which is there. Now, am I able to show those films on my computer to them without getting slammed with a lawsuit? Who's going to sue me? But anyway, you know, question one. Question two, as far, I put PowerPoints together with film clips that I send to my students. With PowerPoints with film clips, can I just share those on Zoom with my students?
You certainly can, yeah. And that will work. The issue of sharing a Swank video live with the rest of your class, I don't know what the licensing requirements are on Swank, so I can't answer that definitively. I can say that I probably wouldn't worry about doing that because it's paid for and all the students are, they're your students. It's not like you're showing it to the world and costing a local movie theater business or something like that. So I don't think I'd hesitate to do that. Whether it's a technical violation of copyright would depend upon the licensing agreement that the library has concluded with Swank. And I just don't know enough about that to be sure.
Well, I'm not worried about that really, because I think, what, you coming after me? I'm a teacher. These are for my students. But what I'll have to do is try it on out and see if the image that I'm seeing is as lovely. The one they're seeing is as perfect as the one I'm seeing. Because when I've tried with other movies, they've not worked out at all. So
did you try the option when you share to optimize your screen sharing for video clip? This one right here. You might try that. That is the circumstance that option is meant for. So that might help. I don't know if it will help enough. Also, you try the Swank out in advance. It is apparently possible. Video providers are aware of Zoom as well, and it's apparently possible to block you from showing a video from a streaming source to your attendees. I know this because I tried to show my little granddaughter a movie clip off of Amazon the other day during a homeschooling session, and all she saw was a black screen. She could hear it, but she couldn't see it. So try it out in advance. You know, take your phone, put it in another room, log it into the meeting, use your computer to share the screen and play it and see what it looks like on your phone.
Right. Get out first, which I did with my students. And my husband is in the other room with his computer. So I run everything. Because you got to come see this. I was like, I can't show that. Thank you so much.
Try it out. Great question.
Try it out. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Another good question here vis-a-vis privacy. Can the host see private messages sent between participants? No. So they can pass notes in class behind your back. You won't know. I'll remember one of the most shattering instances of experiences of my career as a classroom instructor was finding a note that a student had passed to another one after one of the lectures when I hadn't exactly been on the top of my game. Okay, so I don't want to see those messages myself. I'm using my iPad and I can't find Save Chat. You know, that's available only on a computer, I think, unfortunately. There are a few things that you can do on a computer that you can't do on an iPad, and that's no surprise, but that's true in Zoom as well. Why do I get sound breaking up sometimes? It's usually an issue of bandwidth, either yours or more likely your attendees. And Zoom requires a certain minimum. Actually, sound takes more bandwidth than like sharing your screen. So that can happen, unfortunately. You can get people And it happens to me here. So I normally have very good internet here, but every now and then something will happen on the local ISP's network that will cause people to have trouble hearing me. Which is why I always ask people to let me know if they're having trouble hearing me, because I know it can happen. Sometimes Zoom warns you that it's a possibility, sometimes it doesn't. And there's a limit to how much it can do to compensate for instability on an internet connection. So just ain't perfect yet. And yes, and somebody else suggested another possible explanation of that, which is that it's possible that your computer is having trouble keeping up with the audio stream from Zoom as well. If it's an older machine with less memory, that can be a problem, particularly if you get into a meeting with a bunch of people. And it's a good idea to shut down, and the other suggestion here is excellent, to shut down anything else that's running on your computer. If you start having problems like that, shut down everything that you don't need for that meeting and close all your applications and so on, and that may help. Would I be able to schedule an entire term of Zoom sessions at one time? Yes. You can schedule as many in advance and as far in advance as you like. An extraneous comment here from someone: no one's been to the beauty shop. Obviously, I have not. Does everyone having muted or stopped video improve connection to students, reducing sound from breaking up? No, probably not. Okay, we just talked about that. Here's somebody who purchased the document camera that I showed you and loves it. Good. I thought there was going to be a problem there. Excellent. All right. I do not believe my document camera will take still shots. If you have an IPVO document camera, it will. Let me share. I'm sharing my screen. Let me pull up that application. There's a button for that.
There is?
On here, yeah. Where is it?
I don't get that screen on mine.
Is it an IPVO camera?
Yeah, it should be.
There's the, no, that's focus. Where is the?
Where is it? Here.
Oh, I'm sorry, the button's on the camera itself. There's a little button that will allow me to take a picture.
Yes.
It just took a picture. You can't really tell, but it did. This application used to be delivered on a CD with the camera, but then they got cheap, tried to maximize their profit. If you want this IPVO visualizer application, which will allow you to do things like that, you can go to and I would strongly recommend it because it makes the camera much more useful.
Yeah, IPVO. Nothing.
I'm sorry?
It came with no information at all.
Yeah, I hear you. IPEVO.com, IPEVO.com, and there's a software link, and the IPEVO visualizer is completely free because you can't use it unless you've bought the camera, and you can download it for Windows or Mac, or even a Chromebook or Linux, if you happen to have a Chromebook, for instance. But you can download this application, and it just installs. They give you directions on how to install it, but it's just the usual stuff. It will install, and then you can run it and do as I'm doing here and share your computer screen, and then pull that window and then have that window open on your screen, and you can share it with everybody in your meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh, I have to open the window.
Yeah, you have to load you have to run the software, which is this little IPvo visualizer software here, and then just share your screen and share that, and make sure that that window is on top on your monitor, and then whatever your camera sees, your students will see. And you have the option to do things like what did I do? Sorry.
That's all right.
I confused it. It's all right. I probably confused everybody today at one time or another. Why should I not confuse the software? There you go. There's the menu.
Okay.
And I can rotate.
Oh, okay.
And so that they can read what you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
So that is available for free if you have the camera, and they don't even tell you that anymore apparently. So that's aggravating to say the least.
Thank you.
Is it possible to use the whiteboard in Zoom? Sure. There is a Zoom whiteboard that you can use.
How do you use it? It works. I wrote that.
You go to share, you hit the share button like you were going to share your computer screen, and there's an option to share the whiteboard, share a whiteboard. And if you click that, select that and click share, then everybody sees this shared whiteboard. And you can draw on it.
But do you have to use a stylus? Because I was finding it very awkward to write with.
It is very awkward. That's why I don't usually talk about it. You can use a mouse, but writing with a mouse is really hard to do. A graphics tablet.
Can you do that on top of like a video or a picture or something?
No, if you were going to share that, you just share your screen, bring the video or the picture up. You wouldn't need the whiteboard.
Yeah, but then you can draw on it.
Yeah, I do have a graphic tablet though.
Actually, you can. Yeah, let me show you that in a minute. You can control this with a so-called graphics tablet.
Which I have, but never used.
The little plastic piece of flat plastic with a stylus, and you can move the stylus over the graphics tablet, and it's basically a fancy mouse. This little drawing tool will move around, and you can draw a little better with the stylus than you can with a mouse, but it's still not very easy because you're not looking at the stylus while you're drawing or writing. You're looking at the screen, and your hand is over here. You write out of your vision, and that's peculiarly difficult to do. It takes a lot of practice to be effective with it. So that's why my preference for doing something like this is simply to use a document camera.
Which I don't have, and I don't have a smartphone. So there are occasional times when I need to write something quickly. So that's why I wanted to know like if I do have I think I do have a graphics and a stylus to work with.
That's probably worth a try then.
Okay.
You probably be more coordinated with it than I was. You can also do this sort of thing on an iPad with a stylus or your finger as well.
Okay, because the stylus has more control than your finger or a mouse, right?
Yes.
Right.
Typically.
Thank you.
You bet. You can also draw over anything that you share. Let me share my screen again and get rid of, I shared the whiteboard, sorry. I didn't change the option. Now I'm sharing my screen again. Let me bring this little share control bar I should have showed you anyway earlier over. This is what I see when I share my screen. It gives me some control. This is basically a replacement for my Zoom, part of my Zoom windows or menus. And there's an annotate button on that control bar. If I click that, I get the option to draw, erase, type text. Drawing is what you usually use it for. You just select that and select either a thin or a thick line. And now, whatever I share here, I can draw over. Let me bring a window over. I can draw on this. Indeed, you can draw on this if I allow you. By default, I have. You have annotation tools that you can access through the little menu at the that little view options button at the top of your screen. You can draw on this as well, so you can share control of that. You also have the capability to shut that down at need if somebody misbehaves by disabling participants' annotation. Or, which is sneakier, if you want to know who's marking up your screen and doing naughty things, you can have the names of the annotators show up to everyone, which is satisfying. So yes, you can draw over anything that you share with Zoom, and I should have shown you that earlier. I'm sorry.
So if I have an activity that in the classroom, the students are put into different groups to teach them how to do an outline, a proper speech outline, and you're supposed to critique it in terms of what's good, what's bad, and point things out. So this would be better for them to use to, if I provide the outlines ahead of time, which are in the handout section, and then they share the screen and they can annotate themselves. This is the introduction. This does not have, then they can point to certain things themselves.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
It's just trying to think of a different way of teaching what you normally do that works.
That's right. How do you make it work in Zoom? Indeed.
Right.
And Zoom has a lot of tools like that. That's one I wish I'd thought to mention earlier. Sorry.
Oh, where was that when you said the tip? If anyone acts out because they're, that does happen. There's a class clown sometimes.
Right. Under your security icon, there's an option to disable annotate on shared content. And if somebody is misbehaving, you can just click that very quickly and shut them off in mid-draw.
It tells their name?
No, it wouldn't have the name, but it would stop them.
Under view options, I don't see any little writing tool.
The host has it, but we don't have it as guests, right?
No, you should.
Yeah.
I see security. No.
No, I've allowed participant annotation. I wonder if they've moved that. I haven't been in a meeting as an attendee.
Oh, now it came down. I see it now.
Oh, good. Good.
Okay. You have to bring it out. It's under.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, all right. Got it. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
That'll help.
It's fun. But if you're talking and sharing your screen or something and lines, colored lines start appearing on your screen, that's somebody's found that tool.
At least they'll be awake, I guess.
Right. Exactly. They're participating anyway. But you can shut them down by just unchecking that annotate on shared content option from the security icon.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good questions here. Gonna get a phone stand. Good. Can you show different video clips in Zoom breakout rooms? Yeah.
Well, that's me again.
Zoom breakout rooms are totally autonomous. So the people within that breakout room can show videos to one another, and it won't interfere with the main Zoom meeting or other breakout rooms.
How do I set it up? Because there is a video I like to show, but since they won't allow me to show the whole video, but Vimeo, I found out, has little clips of certain things, and it's a teaching tool. So do I have the students go look for it and bring it in, or is there a way that I present it to them and put it in the breakout room?
If you've got everybody distributed into breakout rooms,
which he does automatically,
or intermediate topics,
okay.
You could show the video by joining the breakout room, but you'd have to do it one breakout room at a time.
Oh, okay.
Or you could give them the information they need to find it and show it, and one of them could do it.
Okay.
But you can't project a video to all the breakout rooms simultaneously. It would be nice. You can send a text message to all the breakout rooms simultaneously. Like, we're going to be, going back into the main room in 5 minutes, finish up what you're doing or something.
Okay,
like
can't text either, so
yeah.
I'm real old school.
You can do that. You can send text messages, but you can't join multiple breakout rooms simultaneously and show a video or something like that.
Okay, well, I can't text, but you're saying, so if I tell them beforehand and maybe assign who's going to get which clip, one of the students can do it in the breakout room.
Correct.
Okay.
And when I said text, I didn't mean with a smartphone. I meant there's a text box in Zoom that you can type a message into and send it to all of the breakout rooms simultaneously.
Is that the chat box?
No, it's not the chat tool. It's a separate tool. I'd have to set up breakout rooms and so on.
Oh, but it's in the breakout room and I'll see it then.
It's in the breakout room interface, yeah. Okay. It's pretty well marked. And I am at the bottom of the chat tool.
So we're getting smarter.
Yeah, and somebody just found, I see somebody found the annotation tool.
That's what I wanted to know how to do.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, any of you?
I wonder if we could maybe get an email from one or the other participants. Like, I'm looking at Kathy, the other Kathy, and I'm thinking, hi. I mean, maybe we should get each other's emails and practice Zooming one another with all of this information that you have given us, and we can actually—
That's a wonderful idea. If you're willing to share. Yeah, this practice, it's like the old saying in New York City, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice.
Well, I just thought,
the more Zoom meetings you hold, the more comfortable you'll get with it, the more things you'll learn about, and the more things you'll be able to do comfortably.
There's so much information on it that it's overwhelming, and you give us so information in 2, 3, and then it just goes, my head explodes. But maybe if we contacted one another.
Hundreds and hundreds of Zoom meetings, and I'm still learning stuff about Zoom. And some of it I think's probably been there for a long time, and I just didn't know about it. And some of it's new stuff, but yeah, you can't practice enough with this, because you're going to be a lot more effective as a teacher if you're not worrying about the technology, rather you're worrying about what you're trying to communicate to your students. So the more the technology becomes second nature, the more effective you'll be in using this. So by all means, practice. And like I said before, practice with your family. Practice with whomever will stand for it, because you'll be better as a result. Ardith?
Yeah, one more question.
Surely.
Let's say I made a video in Zoom, and I didn't have any words. I didn't talk during the whole video. Can I go back in and use all those tools and like write in there on the video?
Yeah, actually you could. If you don't speak, there's nothing for YouTube or the Zoom cloud to convert to text. But you can manually add captions
to
your video. I'm trying to think if you can do it in the Zoom cloud. I'm not sure about that.
Don't I have to play it again into the Zoom? Can't I just bring it back into Zoom and play it and then talk or?
Yes, you can.
But how would I do that? How would I bring it back and play it?
All you'd have to do would be to, let's see, yeah, I've got my screen shared here. So I just bring up my Zoom. Sorry, I'm trying to get something out of the way here that's interfering with what I'm trying to do. All right. I can just bring my Zoom recordings back up. I'll tell you what, I'm going to clear those annotations there. There we go. And get out of annotations so I'm not drawing on the screen. Okay, now let me bring that up again. You can go to your Zoom account management screens at zoom.us and pull up your recordings and just pick one. Or you could play, if you stored the recording on YouTube, you could just play it from there.
Okay.
But, okay,
I see what you mean.
Bring up the video.
Okay.
And maybe I'll... and up it goes. We're now recording. And welcome to today's seminar. Let me just pause that for a second. I can full screen it. And remember, I'm recording everything that I am doing in Zoom. So I just play this. He said, I got to start the playing.
More seminars for next week too, of different sorts. I'm just waiting for guidance back from the new online learning pathways dean as to what he wants. But right now, I think we only have 2 Canvas.
Okay, you get the idea. I could play the whole video if I wanted to. And that's being recorded again by Zoom. Okay. And you could send it then back to the Zoom cloud or send it to YouTube, depending on whether you were recording to the Zoom cloud or the local computer.
Right. So like if I did some kind of demonstration, but I didn't talk, I could go back and talk about the demonstration.
You could do a voiceover, exactly.
Yes, okay. That's a voiceover. Oh.
That's a neat idea. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one. That's a neat idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? It's been a great...
How do you put up with us? How do you put up with us?
You're going way past the original time. That's what's so wonderful about you.
Thank you so much.
This is fun for me. This is what I always enjoyed doing as an educator. I'd still be in the classroom if I didn't have to grade. And this gives me that option. I can lecture and pontificate and not have to grade the results of it. So no, I love this, and I'm here to help you, and that's what they asked me to come back for. So the longer, as long as you have, I don't want you to leave without a question answered because you didn't have a chance to ask it anyway. So
tomorrow you're doing video again, right?
I think it's Wednesday.
Next day, 17th.
Oh, the day after tomorrow.
I hope it's Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay.
You notice I wasn't real certain about that.
But if you get a chance, can you find out the rules for because I know that on demand, like there's this whole list of videos that those are all paid for by the campus if we can see it on the on demand, even though some of them are not closed caption. Yeah. But if we close caption it and it's paid by them, do you know the rules? Or it should be okay, right?
I would just say that I would not hesitate to share a video clip from one of the library resources with my students.
Okay.
Either through Canvas or through a Zoom session.
Okay.
I just can't imagine you getting in trouble for doing that.
All right. Because it should, if they're sharing it there, we should have permission to use it. Fair use, or whatever that word.
I just can't imagine that would constitute an actionable copyright violation.
Okay.
But I'm not a copyright lawyer. So
Okay.
you're
Googling it ourselves.
That's the thing about copyright. Nobody's ever sure of much of anything. It's too nebulous a set of rules.
I mean, and I don't want to break any rules.
You can never be, well, you know certain things definitely are and other things are not, but there's a huge gray area in the middle of that it's just very difficult to be certain of your.
Yeah, because I still don't understand. Yeah. I still don't understand how.
Go ahead.
I still don't understand how I can show it in the classroom if I purchased it, but if I show it on Zoom to my students and they're the only ones seeing it, I don't understand. It's not like I'm selling.
Unfortunately, that one is pretty clear. That's the way the Digital Millennium Copyright Act was written to mollify the recording industry and the movie industry. And Disney especially. What you can do things in the classroom legally. You can show a video in the classroom. It doesn't really matter so much whether you own the video or not. You can show it for educational purposes in the classroom.
Okay.
In the physical classroom, but not in the online classroom. And they made that distinction. And I agree, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's not fair, and it's not wise, but it is unfortunately the law.
Okay. But if the school is paid for anything that's in that on demand, the campus or the district has purchased the license for.
They purchased a license to make that content available online.
Okay.
So I can't see how you could get into trouble sharing it further with only your students. If you were sharing it with the world and charging admission, yeah. But if you were just sharing it
for the schools,
exactly, movie night. But if you was sharing it with your students in a closed environment where only your students can access, I can't see how that could possibly be a problem.
Okay, well, anyway, I got to finish grading so that I can concentrate on getting my certificate before the 30th.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Let me know if you have questions.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Pauline.
This is Pauline. I tried to email you to the email that you gave me, but it didn't work.
Oh, no. You sure you didn't put the N on the end of my name?
The what? I did.
The letter N. No, there's no N there. It's D. Gibber So. No N. Because they were limiting, at the time I came in, they were limiting email aliases to 8 characters. So I did put my email in the chat tool earlier. It's dgibberso, DGIBERSO @sdccd.edu.
Yeah, I have it here. D, and what else?
DGIBERSO @sbccd.edu.
SO.
SO. Let me put it in the chat tool for you.
Okay, sbccd.edu.
There it is in the chat tool at the bottom. Here, there it is. I think, yeah, I'm still sharing my screen.
I don't see it here.
Okay, but anyway, You had a question about the faculty certification course. I'll be happy to answer that if I can.
Yeah, I enrolled it, I think, yeah, for 1920.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I know that I couldn't finish that on time, so I re-register for 2021.
Very good.
So what else do I need to do right now in order to pursue this plan?
Well, you can continue to work in the 1920 cohort, and the reading and stuff like that you won't have to do again. And if you satisfy an assignment, if you finish an assignment, some of that at least will be done in your practice course, and that's not going away. They're not going to give you a new practice course. You'll just keep the same one. So some of the stuff that you'll do will be, you won't have to do over again. And even the parts that you do have to do over again, they'll probably take very little time because you've gone through the learning process already. So you can't start the new, you can't get into the new training course until July 1 or shortly thereafter. But you can continue to work in the current one, and it'd be relatively easy for you to transfer the stuff that you've done over to the new one without losing a lot of time. It'd be better than wasting those 2 weeks between now and July 1st and not being able to work at all.
I don't think I
So
can.
I keep working in the current one, and then just the day before or something, make sure if you've uploaded any files or anything like that, make sure you've still got those on your local computer. And you might copy and paste out any discussion posts you've made or anything else that you've done in the training course itself, and just have them in a Word document or something. And then you can just paste them right into the new course. And it won't take you very long to catch up to where you were in the old course, in other words, and then just continue working.
That we just mentioned, because I haven't done much at all. I just attending the workshop. Yeah.
Well, you could start now if they've enrolled you in the current cohort. You could start working in there now and get 2 weeks worth of work done. And just be careful to keep copies of everything you type and do and so on. But the reading and things like that you wouldn't have to do again, and the viewing of videos and so on you wouldn't have to do again. So you could get a lot done between now and the end of June that you would not have to repeat much of in the new course anymore.
So
rather than, if you have time over the next 2 weeks that you might not have after July 1st, you could certainly do that.
Oh, I see. Where all the information that I need to get?
Let's see if you're actually in there.
Yeah, please.
Let me pull that up here. I had it open a little while ago. Let's see. That'll do. Okay. Let me go into the, oops, I can't be mini me. I gotta be real me here in just a second to get into that. There's the current cohort. And let's see if you're in there.
People.
There are like 1,000 people in there. I could have just searched for you, I guess. You'd be around here somewhere.
PL.
Ah, there you are. Yes, you are enrolled.
So
And let me look and see if they've made you a practice course.
Yeah, please. I don't see it here. Right?
I can masquerade as you for a moment and go to your dashboard. Oh, that's interesting. You're enrolled, but it's not showing on your dashboard. That's curious. Let's go to the courses list here. Look at all courses.
This is the last courses that I had.
There it is, but it's not showing.
Yeah.
Ah, because you have selected certain things for your dashboard and that one's not selected. So I'm going to select those for you. That's your practice course that you'll need. You don't need that until like module 5. So you won't use it immediately. So I don't know if you'll get to that at this time, but there they are. So, and let's see, I think that takes effect immediately. So let's go back to your dashboard. There they are. Here's your online faculty certification program, and here's your practice course, which doesn't have to be published. So we might as well publish it.
Yeah, that's it. Because homepage. Yeah.
Or choose a different homepage, right? Let's see what I want. Why don't we wait until you put something in there? That'll be better. Okay, so you just start here, click on that tile. Here's some reading material before you get started, but to actually get started, you just click right here where it says begin module 1, and you just click on that link.
Okay.
And here you are. You just start here and work your way down.
Oh, I see.
Here's, and there are actually 3 grades in this one. There's an icebreaker discussion, an assignment, and a quiz. And when you finish those, the next module will light up and you can start working through it. And like the quizzes, you'll have to take over again, but they don't take very long at all. The graded assignment, you will have already met the criteria by the time you start in the new cohort in July. You won't have to do that over again. The discussion, you can copy and paste, copy the whatever you post in the icebreaker discussion, you can copy and paste into a Word document and keep it. And then when you do this same activity again in the new course, you can just paste it out of the Word document into Canvas. You wouldn't take any time at all to do that. So you can get started right now if you want to. And if you have time over the next 2 weeks that you don't want to miss utilizing in this, you can just get as far as you can. There's 7 modules. Module 6 is the one that takes forever because just about every link in the module is an assignment or a quiz or something. But you can get some of that done and not have to, and to repeat that in the new course would only take like 1/10 of the time or something like that it took you to do it the first time. So you would still save yourself a lot of time over the next couple of weeks. So that's up to you. But you do have that option. You are in that course and ready to start if you want to.
Okay, so that's mean I start right now for those, module 1 first.
Yeah, I'm not quite. Yeah, apparently doing that desktop management like you were doing is good in Canvas, but it can cause new stuff sometimes not to show up. So you have to be careful about, you have to go to the courses tool and make sure that you've selected everything that needs to be on your dashboard at any given time.
Okay. All right. If I need any help, I'm gonna call you again.
That is what I'm here for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, it's good to talk to you. You take care and stay safe.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.